Europe and China are uniting against the U.S. on climate change. This, of course, ahead of the president's expected withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord. Senior international correspondent Fred Pleitgen joining us live in London. Good morning to you, Fred. Let me get this straight. The world's biggest polluter is now the leader on environmental issues. Is that where we stand potentially at 3 o'clock this afternoon?
Potentially, or it seems as though they're trying to become one of the leaders in combating climate change, or at least in combating climate change policy, along with the European Union. And Dave, it's been so interesting to see early this morning here in Europe how China is really laying on the full court press here in Europe. You have the Chinese Prime Minister meeting with Angela Merkel earlier today, where she said she thought it was, quote, joyous that China was so committed to combating climate change. Later today, the Chinese Prime Minister is then going to go to the European Union, where new initiatives are going to be announced, and the EU and China are already announcing that they want to start a technical partnership to increase their capabilities in fostering industries that combat climate change, also for urban development as well. And then you have the leader of the European Union, or the European Commission. He came out last night and openly threatened the United States that American leadership was at stake and that China could jump in. Let's listen into what Jean-Claude Juncker said yesterday.
We explained to Mr. Trump in Taormina that it would not be good for the world or the United States if America was to literally step off the world stage, because the vacuum will be filled and the Chinese are in prime position to take on a leadership role.
So he said that yesterday at a talk show in Germany, where he was asked specifically what would happen if the U.S. stepped away from that climate agreement. And I think one of the things that we're seeing, Dave, is that the Europeans are saying, look, this would not only be bad for climate policy, and that Europe and for Asia, for instance, would remain committed to combating climate change, but it would also generally be very bad for American diplomacy, for American foreign policy. There's a lot of European leaders who are saying, look, combating climate change is so central in politics in Europe, it certainly would damage the United States. And the Chinese and the Germans have said, look, we've designated future industries to combat climate change as one of the most important economic factors going forward. And just a little side note, Dave, you know, in Germany, I was at a wind farm factory late last year, and they really have made a gigantic industry out of wind turbines and are trying to make that one of the future industries for growth going forward.